I've noticed something interesting today, which a lot of people have been thinking about, and a lot of people think about on a day to day basis, which is if you want something done, you need to do it yourself. And if you want something done right, then yeah, you're going to want to do it yourself. There's a certain problem with every single person on this earth that wants something done in a different way. I want it this way, I want it that way, I want to have this amount of control, I want to have this amount of stuff, I want to make sure you just do as I say, da da da. And when you actually look at it, it's all about how the person has like a degree of power in the conversation. So this is something I really wanted to just talk about today, because recently I noticed that it kind of coincides a lot with the idea of if you want your life to be a certain way, you need to take the actions necessary for it to become the way you want it to be. And so what this means is that if you want your life to be a certain way, nobody's going to do it for you. You need to be the one to be selfish enough to take control of your own life and to make sure that you create the lifestyle that you want. And at the start of my journey, like maybe like 4 years ago, I wasn't really thinking about this, but you actually, if you want something bad enough, you actually start using other people in order to get what you want, which is not great. Because I'll give you a little bit of a story. I was working with a lot of different clients at some, I like maybe less than a year ago, maybe like half a year ago. I was working with a lot of different clients, and most of them, the big majority, were mostly like barbershops and barbers. And so what I noticed by working with these people is that most of them actually want such a high degree of control in their own life, in their own business, that it's very hard for them to trust someone else to do something for them. And if it's not done in a certain way that they want, or that they feel like you're not going fast enough for their specific, I guess, needs or wants, then what ends up happening is they get extremely upset. And it's completely emotional, right? So like, I'll give you this example of this one barber I was working with. So, mobile barber, high ticket barber, he was basically making like roughly like 10K a month. He was maybe like charging like $75 to $120 per haircut or something like that, USD. And what I noticed is when I started working with him, we were doing, like, I pitched to him like a first project, and he said like, yeah, let's do it. So he started paying me for that. And then what I noticed is that every single month, every single week, he would come up with a new idea. I was like, oh, can you help me do this? Oh, can you help me do this? Oh, let's do that. Or, oh, let's start a new project. Can you help me run ads? And it felt like he was going all over the place very quickly. And so at the time, I wasn't very experienced with having worked with someone as fast as that. And so I was always the one working at like fastest. And so having that person that kind of matched my speed made me, I guess, lose a bit of control over the situation. And instead of saying like, hey, let's take a step back and let's analyze everything, what I did is I jumped into a bunch of stuff a bit too quickly. And what ended up happening is he ended up paying me a lot of money, but no results were coming in. So he said like, hey, I'm paying you all this money. Why am I not getting any clients? And I was like, so you think paying me money without putting in the effort and the time for me to actually deliver on the stuff is going to result in more money? Like, that doesn't make, like, that's not how it works, right? It's like the whole point is you give me money, I do something, we look at the results, I refine it, I make it better until you start getting money from it. And that might take, if you have all of the ingredients, that might take like 2 weeks, that might take a month. And if you don't have the ingredients and we have to start something from scratch, then in that case, it's going to take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Like, it's going to take however much time it's going to take. Like, it really depends on the project itself. So in this case, the first initial project we did was something related to, what did we do, if I remember correctly? It was something like, yeah. So the first project we did was, I'm pretty sure it was just making a website for him or something like that. I could be wrong, because we were basically looking at two different things. Oh yeah, that's right. So first thing is, I was helping him put together a course he wanted to sell to other barbers so that they could start charging higher ticket for their own, like, understanding exactly how they can set up their own shop, how they can charge more money, how they can talk to the clients a certain way, how can they create content revolving around their brand, all that sort of stuff. So I was helping him market himself and his course that he wanted to sell with that. And the big problem we encountered very early on is that he had never done this for someone else. And so we were starting from scratch. So I was like, okay, well, this is going to take more time than I thought. I said initially it might take a month to put on board, like to online, but it actually ended up taking a lot more time because he had a lot more people on his team that he needed to take care of. Like, he had a bunch of video editors, thumbnail editors, he had a photographer, he had a bunch of people in his group that he needed to take care of. And so he was paying everybody, including myself. And I was helping him with a lot of strategy and this first project. And then he came to me and he said, hey, is there not a way for us to make more money faster? And I was like, yeah, the number one way would be to run Google ads. Like, that's what I know how to do for barbers. And he said, okay, well, how can we do that then? And I said, well, first we need a website because you don't have one. So I can do one for you first, and then we can see about running ads. So I did that, started running ads for him, and he said after like a week, he said like, oh, I'm not seeing any results, so I think I'm going to just have to stop paying you because I just got a huge bill from the vet because my dog was sick or whatever. And I was like, okay, so wait. So you've paid me all this money and you don't want to see it through until the end? Like, what the fuck? Like, you want me to stop the work as it is and you just want to figure it out yourself? And he said, yeah. And I was like, all right. I mean, if that's what you want, like, I put everything in a document for him and I made sure that everything was clear. Like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. I want to make sure that the plan was like clearly aligned for him to follow if he wanted to continue. And so that I didn't just leave without doing anything, you know? It's like, I set up 2 different websites for him. So I was setting up all of the meta ads for his coaching program, his course, and I was setting up all the Google ads for his, like, his barbershop clients, I guess. And so since he wasn't making enough money fast enough, like after a week of running the stuff, he was like, no, you know, I'm too impatient, can't be fucked. So I was like, okay, well, that's your decision. Like, I'm here to help, but if you don't want to see this through, then that's your decision. Like, I'm not going to be able to change your mind if you decided, like, you know what, this is not a good investment. So if I can't fit into his standards of that were not really aligned, that weren't really talked about, I think what ended up happening is, this is what I wanted to talk about today, is when I said, if you wanted something done right, you do it yourself. The whole point with that is that you can set expectations, but if you don't tell the other person, how can they measure up to your expectations without even knowing that they are there in the first place? So, like, for instance, if I go into a relationship with a woman and I start dating her, and she has like super specific, precise like standards and super specific, precise expectations, well, in that case, if I don't measure up to them, she's just gonna ghost me, and she's just gonna think like, oh no, he's just not the perfect fit. I'm just gonna go to the next person, and I'm just like, but that makes no fucking sense. Like, if you actually wanted the relationship to work in the first place, you would actually tell me, hey, I expect you to do this, this, and this. Are you going to be able to do it? If not, I'm going to go look for someone else. Like, a relationship is a deal between two people that is profitable for each party involved. So, in that case, wouldn't it make sense for everybody involved to just become better at communicating? Oh, hey, I have these expectations. Can we get it done by this time? Or are you going to be able to do it by this time? Are you going to be able to deliver on this, this, and this? Yes or no? And it's like, okay, that from there, I'll explain my version to him, and I'll say, hey, I know that I can do this, this, and this by this time, but I don't know if I can do this, this, and this by this time. So can we find a middle ground where we get things done regardless and we still keep pushing forward? Or do you want to cut it right now as it is? Like, that's your decision. Like, if you have the ingredients to grow, I'm happy to help you, but if you don't, then I'm not gonna push my luck, you know what I mean? So the whole point of, if you want something done right, you do it yourself, is pretty misleading, because the problem with it is it comes from a place of you're not setting expectations and standards and talking about them with the other person. And so from my personal experience, I've noticed that it actually doesn't benefit anybody other than yourself when you don't set these things. When you have expectations, when you have standards, when you have things like that that you keep to yourself, you're not helping anybody other than yourself. What I don't really understand either, I guess, is the world of humans has been created ever since the dawn of mankind by multiple people helping each other and like cooperating. So the fact that we've kind of lost that today is a big problem, because people are basically have been influenced by capitalism so much to a degree that everybody's just a mercenary, and it's very hard to actually find true friends that are willing to put themselves on the line in order to help you more to their own detriment. When I'm helping someone, I want to make sure that they feel like it was a good investment and they're getting more value out of the equation than they're paying me for, I guess. So that way they want to keep paying me because I'm helping them so much. But this can be taken advantage of in a very a lot of very different ways. Like, I talked to you about one of my clients. Another client I had before that I worked with him for like 9 or 10 months, I think, and it was going really well. But we got to a point where he felt so stressed out, and he felt so overwhelmed by the fact that I had ideas that didn't match his, and he saw that I knew how to push his business forward more than he did. He was like, I don't really want to keep paying you because I feel like shit. Like, it feels like having a personal coach telling me like, hey, do better, do better, do better. You can do better, you can do better. And I don't want that. And he didn't say it outright, but that's what it felt like. And so these relationships end up failing because expectations were set and they weren't met, and so people got upset. That's one of the most like true sentences I've heard. One of the people I've watched recently, like I've been watching this guy Levi Nix, a couple of his videos. He always says something like that. So I feel like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense actually. And so what is the solution to this? Well, you've got two solutions. Either you get better at communicating and you put your foot on the floor and you be like, this is where I'm going to stand my ground, and we need to communicate about this. We need to become better at communication. I've got a few expectations, a few standards. If you don't meet them, I'm going to leave. And that's a non-negotiable. Or you can just figure something out by yourself, which is much harder, because at the end of the day, if you are independent and you don't rely on anybody, it's very hard to make any amount of income in today's society without relying on anybody. It's practically almost impossible, which, after reflecting, I've noticed that's what I've been trying to do way too much. I've been relying on myself way too much instead of getting others to help me or helping others, which I've transitioned way more into over the past few years. But there are negatives and positives on both fronts, right? So if I work with a client and he gets more money out of the deal than I do, then I'm working at a detriment, because I could be getting paid more by someone else to do the same thing, right? But in that case, that just makes it a mercenary thing. It's like, oh, well, what's the point? If I'm really just working for money, then what the fuck is the point? I don't care. I'm just going to go to the highest bidder, right? And I'm going to work with them. But in that case, it just deletes the friendship and the honor system that people have between each other, the loyalty. That's no longer a thing anymore. So it's very hard to find a balance between everything, because people want things, but they don't necessarily communicate them. So you have to become good at either getting that out of them for them to speak it to you, or understanding it before it's spoken, which is very hard. I don't know if you've noticed this. If you're a man and you've been dating women for a long time, you can probably tell this is very sounding like a bit familiar. So a funny example I could give you is like, whenever you do something and a woman says like, oh, I want you to do it this way, and it's like, you do it that way, and it's like, no, actually I want you to do it this way, and it's like, I can never satisfy you, can I? Like, if you want something done, don't you just fucking do it yourself, right? That's what ends up happening most of the time, which is funny, but it's a poor example of bad communication. It's bad communication. Like, at the root cause of a lot of things, bad communication is the biggest cause. So at the end of the day, what can you do to make sure that your standards are set and are met? And same thing goes with expectations. Well, the number one thing you can do is improve your communication. You can make sure everybody's like listened to, heard, and make sure everything is on point. Everything is talked about. Everything is discussed, so that everybody feels like they've been heard, feels like they've been acknowledged, and make sure all of the everybody's expectations are set out on the table, so that everybody knows about them. Or you can do your best to not give a shit about others and just care only about yourself. And in that case, you'll end up very lonely, because if you don't care about anybody else other than yourself, what ends up happening is you lose touch with generating and creating those real deep friendships and those bonds with other people, which is quite sad, because it's one of the most beautiful parts of life. The biggest problem is when you mix up money and emotions and all this other stuff together. What ends up happening is you actually end up seeing people's true colors. And even though one of your best friends might one day turn out to be a complete piece of shit, and you never knew about it, so you need to be careful. You need to be aware of these things, because everything could one day in your life be completely turned upside down. And you need to be ready for that. Because if you aren't, what are you going to do? So what you can do right now is improve your communication and just be prepared for the worst outcome possible. That's the best kind of advice I can give you for this topic about setting expectations, doing it yourself if you want it done right. And that's pretty much it. You just have to do your best regardless. So thank you guys so much for watching. A bit of a different type of video, a bit of a more, I guess, vague video, more of a thinking type video, I guess. But if you enjoy these kinds of videos, just check out my other videos. I've got a bunch of them. I just record every single day to give you guys some advice on what's going on with me and what have I done, what have I learned recently that I can give back to you guys in terms of like a story or a lesson, so that you guys can extract that and apply it to your own lives. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm happy to have you here. And with that said, I will see you tomorrow. The sun is out. Even though there are clouds, it doesn't matter. It's still light outside. So it's time to get back to work. And I will see you tomorrow. See ya.